Before we get started, I want to let you guys know about the Vintage Collection podcast. It is my all-new podcast, a spin-off of the Cantina Chatter podcast that focuses solely on Hasbro's Star Wars, the Vintage Collection line. If you're a fan of the Vintage Collection line like I am and believe that it should be preserved and advocated for, then definitely check us out. You can get it anywhere you download your podcasts: Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. I'll place a link to episode 1 down below. Give it a listen. I'm really excited about it, so let me know what you think. Hello and welcome to Victoria's Cantina, where today we're having a look at the Hasbro Star Wars The Black Series Imperial Stormtrooper as seen in Star Wars The Mandalorian. This is a really exciting release. I finally got mine from Amazon.com. They retail at $19.99. Hasbro's latest effort in terms of Stormtroopers. This is a complete reimagining of the previous Black Series Stormtrooper that was released way back when in 2013. And of course, this is a VC video, so we will be doing a comparison a little bit later. For now, let's look at the packaging. This is the brand new aesthetic that Hasbro has created for the Black Series. I like it. I'm glad that they refreshed the Black Series packaging. It was very dull. It had been like that for almost 5 years in black and red, and I think this looks really cool. It's still predominantly, black theme, but it's got a little more color. Each movie, TV show, or theme is coordinated with its own color. So for The Mandalorian, we have this nice shade of burnt orange, and we get a character image right there. So the idea is if you buy multiples of these figures that you can line them up and make like a little mural. To me, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to open them up anyway. But if you're somebody that keeps these in package, then perhaps you'd like doing that. Stormtroopers are elite shock troops fanatically loyal to the Empire and impossible to sway from the Imperial cause. They wear imposing white armor, which offers a wide range of survival equipment. And it does indicate that this is number 2 in the Mandalorian subset of Black Series figures. Number 1 being the Mandalorian himself in his Beskar armor. Overall, I really dig the look of the packaging. I think it's fresh, it's new, but it's also kind of familiar in some ways. They brought back the little window on top, which is interesting to see. The only thing I will complain about, though, is that when you start stacking them up, they're kind of hard to balance because you have a smaller surface up here up top. And when you start putting multiples, they have a tendency to want to fall. So I did notice that. Other than that, it's great. I'm excited to check out this new Stormtrooper. So let's go and get him out of the packaging and take a look. Alright, so here's the Stormtrooper out of the packaging in as much of an at-attention pose as I was able to get him in. As you can see, the left arm sticks a little bit closer to the body than the right arm does. I don't know if this is just my sample. Maybe the other ones can bring the arms closer to their bodies, but at least with mine, this is the case. The sculpt looks fantastic. We've been waiting for an all-new Stormtrooper for a while. At least I have. I know some people were pretty content with the previous version. It wasn't bad for 2013, but it's time for a redo. Now, I will note, I feel there is a little bit of a gap between the bottom of the helmet and where the shoulders kind of begin. I feel like the shoulders should be a little bit higher, the helmet should be a little lower. I get why it's like this. You need to be able to pose your figure, so some of those gaps are sometimes necessary in order to attain super articulation. But the silhouette is very good. It's a very proportionate Stormtrooper. When you look at it from the side, that is very apparent. It looks like they captured all the details very well. The shades of white plastic seem pretty uniform throughout the figure. It's basically just a glossy, shiny, clean Stormtrooper, and I think that's what we needed, so I'm really happy about that. Let's take an up-close look at the helmet, and you can see that Hasbro did a really nice job with the helmet sculpt. A very nice job giving us something that feels more authentically Star Wars than that previous release and just feels right. They already nailed the 3 3/4 inch Stormtrooper helmet in the Vintage Collection, and I feel like they've basically done the same thing with Black Series now. That being said, there have been a few issues with QC across the board when it comes to these helmets. I've seen it on social media. People have been posting photos of their Stormtroopers that don't have the best QC in the helmet, and I think I figured out why that is. So if you look underneath, they actually sculpted a head. There's a human head underneath it, under the helmet. So I think what the problem is there's going to be extra air as a result surrounding the areas between that sculpted head and the parts of the helmet that are sculpted. So the dome. I think they're cramming the figure into the packaging, into the plastic tray. And what that's doing is pressing in around the dome of the helmet. And because you have these gaps inside, it's pressing in and causing the dome to become malformed on some samples. Now, I've received 3 of these guys so far, just kind of like a starter set of Stormtroopers. The one that I opened for this review is the best looking one. The other 2 have some issues. The issue on this one isn't so much with the shape of the helmet. From what I can tell, it's actually just the paint. You can see that the lens over its left eye is not painted all the way to the top. So you have a little bit of a weird looking lazy-eyed sort of gap. However, the other one is severely malformed. And yeah, there's a paint issue with the line that goes above the lenses. That's obvious. But if you look at the shape of the helmet, it's actually kind of like pushed in right here on the side. Like it's caved in a little bit. It looks really weird. It looks really deformed. And I think that goes back to there just being that gap between the helmet and the head underneath. And then when they put in the package, the plastic's pressing in on it to hold it in place, and it's causing this sort of issue. I do like the idea of them doing something like this. Maybe it's better for the articulation of the figure. But I do see how that could potentially be causing some of these issues with deforming and QC issues with the helmet not being straight and such. But that said, if you are able to manage a perfect sample of the figure, I don't know that this is quite perfect. It doesn't look perfect in terms of the paint, but it's pretty darn good. If you're able to snag a nearly perfect piece, I think this is pretty close to that, then I think you're going to be happy. You are going to end up with a very nice sample and a great looking figure, a very great looking figure. I truly adore the sculpt. Again, a little bit of a gap between the helmet and the shoulders. It just seems like there's a little bit too much, but it's not all that bad. It's not all that bad at all. The detail is very nice. All the sculpting precision on this character is what it needs to be. And there's not a whole lot that it needs to be. It just needs to be a Stormtrooper, but they've been trying to perfect Stormtrooper since 1978. And I feel like they've only really gotten pretty close to that in recent years with the Vintage Collection release, and then now with this version here in Black Series. This looks really good. It's pretty close to perfect, but just a few issues that need to be worked out. A little bit of like a paint coloration scrape right there. I do like how the whole thing is like a glossy plastic. It's not like the glossiest plastic in the world, but it's not... It looks appropriate. It feels about right for what you would expect with a Stormtrooper. Also, nice ribbing here on the undersuit. You can see right there. Reminds me a bit of the First Order Stormtroopers, and I think this is what it looked like in Rogue One and in The Mandalorian, so that is very nice. But yeah, the sculpting just feels right. The paint details here look good. Here at the back, these little details look very nice. When I was a kid, I thought that this actually said like oil or something. This little grenade explosion feature right here, very nice. Like I said, the detail on here is very nice. It's exactly what it needs to be. Just a clean, simple, plain Stormtrooper. You do have peg holes on the bottom. Yeah, it looks great. It's really proportionate. It's a beautiful sculpt. Let's talk articulation. So you have a nice ball joint here at the head. Again, you have that head that's cast inside there. And that is on a ball at the top, but it's also at a ball at the bottom of the neck. So it gives you some really nice movement here with your Stormtrooper. Really, really nice. For the shoulders, we do have these floating shoulder pads. This is new for Black Series with this character. So if you pull it in, you are able to get it to go out all the way. You do have to be careful that you don't bump the top of the shoulder. If you do, you're going to bend the plastic right there on the pad. And, we don't want to have that happen. There are butterfly joints here inside the torso. It's not the smoothest motion, but you do get some good motion out of it. You can rotate it, of course. And if you do that, you can pull the shoulders in again. We do not have a bicep swivel. I don't really think we need it here. But look at this bend here at the elbow. That is a beautiful bend, far more than 90 degrees. It's great. You can pull it out. You can rotate that elbow as well. Here at the wrists, you can rotate them. This one's going to go forward and backward, whereas the right one is going to go up and it's going to go down. Here at the torso, we do have a ball joint right here. Very nice range of movement right there. We don't have anything here at the lower torso. Here at the hips, you can't attain a full split. This is about as far as you're going to get. I think it's efficient. I don't really think you need to go farther than that. but you can move them outward. Do note that when you bring them out, the cod piece is going to cause them to kind of split outward. So you're not going to be able to get them into like just a neutral sitting position because of the cod piece. But, I think that's fine. I don't know of any vehicles coming out or any instances where I'd want to have this sitting on the shelf. You can also rotate at both of the thighs just like that. You can bend right here at the knee. You can also rotate it, and it's a really nice bend. It doesn't go all the way, but I think it's sufficient. And then we have nice rocker ankles here at the ankles. So they bend up and down, and then you can pivot them side to side. So overall, this is marvelously articulated. I can't really think of much else I would have liked to have seen. Maybe the butterfly joints could be a little bit smoother, maybe a lower abdominal swivel. But other than that, I can't think of anything that would have been more useful than what they gave us. So for accessories, we have a brand new sculpt for our Imperial issue blaster. It is basically a Stormtrooper blaster, but it is a little bit different. This little piece right there sticks out a little bit more. We also have the scope added right here on that side, which is interesting because you never really see them use those in the films or anything. So, but it looks cool. It's a new sculpt, so nice. And I'll just bring in the previous one right here up top so you can compare it. It does look more specific to the original trilogy. I feel like this one is more in line with Rogue One and more in line with The Mandalorian. So it's a Mandalorian figure. It's right for them to have redone the gun. And you can see the figure interacts beautifully with his weapon. He holds it just fine. I do appreciate that Hasbro sculpted the left hand in a way that is obviously meant to grasp onto the barrel of the gun. That is not something they often do. Of course, previously on the last one, they did sculpt the trigger finger. They've done that again for this one, which if you're trying to go for an original trilogy look, if you look at the films, a lot of the time, the Stormtroopers were carrying the handles of the blasters in the left hand and holding the barrels in the right hand. So it's going to be a little trickier to do this time around, just like it was with the previous Black Series release, but it's not impossible. All right, so here's a comparison of our brand new Stormtrooper along with our original Stormtrooper. You can see they are quite different. Yes, they're both Stormtroopers. Yes, they're both black and white. But in terms of the sculpt, in terms of the proportions, this brand new release is superior to that original release. You can see the other one looks kind of derpy. He looks kind of bored, kind of uncomfortable. Yes, his arms do conform better to his sides, but you know what? I'll take that issue compared to how awesome this one looks in terms of aesthetics. The new one is also a tad shorter. It's a very slight. It's even more slight than it actually appears on camera, but there is a little bit of a size difference. And I think part of it is, the helmet on the original one is just so big compared to the one on the new one. That said, I don't think the older one is a terrible figure. It was good for its time, but I think the new one represents a transition into the bigger and better things that Black Series has been doing over the past couple of years. They've really evolved a lot over the past couple of years in terms of sculpting, in terms of proportions, in terms of photoreal and articulation, all of it. And I think this is an important figure because it demonstrates that evolution using the same character from years ago, but recreated for 2020 for where the line is currently and for where we hope it goes going forward. I'm still going to use these. I'll probably just keep them in the background, and the Mandalorian versions, I'll have them more in the foreground of my displays. You'll also notice that the Mandalorian Stormtrooper does not have the weapons pouch or holster that was on the original one, and that's because in Rogue One and Mandalorian, they don't have the holster, so it makes sense for this release. Here's a comparison of our Mandalorian Stormtrooper along with our SH Figuarts Stormtrooper, which was based on A New Hope. This is the second version that Figuarts put out. Side to side, these look really good together. They actually look pretty similar. I think the floating shoulder pads actually look better on Hasbro's effort than they do on the Figuarts. But I do think that the sculpted details are just a little bit sharper on the Figuarts. I think that the plastic has a nicer color to it than the Black Series one. It just has more of a consistent sheen throughout. As far as the heads go, they're both really good. I mean, this one does feel more like A New Hope helmet, and this one does feel more like a Mandalorian / Rogue One helmet. But I feel like these two would work in the same display if you wanted to put them together. Here's a quick comparison shot of our new Stormtrooper with our recently released 40th anniversary The Empire Strikes Back / regular line release Black Series Darth Vader, along with our new Stormtrooper. And you can see that they seem to scale quite well with each other. And yeah, they look really cool. The latest and greatest Black Series Darth Vader, along with the latest and greatest Black Series Stormtrooper. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. This is the Hasbro Star Wars The Black Series Imperial Stormtrooper from The Mandalorian. Overall, you guys, this is an evolution compared to Hasbro's original Stormtrooper. They've come a long way. All of the latest things they're doing with the Black Series are represented here in terms of sculpt, in terms of articulation system. I'm a huge fan of the figure. That said, it's not perfect. It is a light year beyond the original release, but it still has a couple of issues, namely the QC issue with the helmet smashing in. And I do think it is because they have that sculpted head underneath. I'm sure they did that because in terms of engineering, in terms of articulation, it gives you better posing options, but it's not good that it's coming that way from the factory. But I believe because it has those gaps underneath between the helmet and the head, it is causing that indentation or that deformity that you're seeing on some of these Stormtroopers from the factory. And that's just unacceptable. But if you do manage to get a good sample, you're going to be happy with the figure. It's highly posable. The articulation system's a lot smoother than its predecessor. He interacts with his weapon a lot better than his predecessor. And just aesthetically speaking, it's a lot nicer looking of a Stormtrooper. So even if you have the previous one, I say, it's worth the upgrade. I'm not someone who thinks you can ever have too many Stormtroopers, especially when they're of this caliber and when they're as accessible in terms of price and availability as this one seems to be. All right, my friends, I hope that you've enjoyed this review. Let me know your own thoughts. What do you think about the new Stormtrooper? Sound off down in the comments. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Subscribe to the Cantina Chatter podcast and the Vintage Collection podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. As always, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Victoria's Cantina. Until next time, bye-bye.